Can everyone hear me? Oh, well, you can't answer. So, welcome everyone. So, as Rachel said, my name is Lynnette Medcalf, and I am a program coordinator in the Twin Cities Social Services Northern Division. I've been with the Salvation Army now for almost 10 years. So, I've done a few different things. When I was first hired, I was doing direct case management, and then I went to another corps, and then I started doing, I was a case manager at another office, and now I am a program coordinator, and I also do the Pathway of Hope program. So I just started in that position in April of last year. So this has been a really fun experience, and I'm really glad to be a part of this webinar and really grateful to be asked to do this. So we can go ahead and get started. So today's webinar is, as you can see, on customer service and social services, with the subtitle of Let's Go From Good to Great. So today I just really want to talk to you all about how we can just improve the experience of the clients that we see coming into our corps and into our buildings. And I don't know if you guys are like me. I've had some really great experiences as far as customer service goes, and I've had some really poor ones. And so this is something that I'm really passionate about. I just think it's so important for the people that we see and that we provide services to, that they have the best experience possible. And so that's where this is coming from today. So we'll go ahead and get started. So the first slide here says, why is excellent customer service so important? And you would, I mean, it's a pretty practical question, pretty elementary, but a few things that come to mind right away when that question is posed. And you all can definitely provide feedback, adding to this list, and maybe some of you wouldn't mind sharing in the questions box what you think is important when it comes to excellent customer service. But for me, what I think is, first of all, we are not only representing the Salvation Army, but we are representing God. So I just think sometimes that with the busyness and chaos and craziness in some of our corps and our offices, it can get pretty stressful. And sometimes, you know, we're not always keeping that at the forefront of how we operate. Yes, it's extremely important that the organization that we work for, that we're representing that organization in a positive light, so that when people go back to family or friends, that they can say, I had the best experience at the Salvation Army. But also just saying that we are the hands and feet of God, the hands and feet of Jesus. So, you know, we're representing Him, and we just want to make sure people leave our presence knowing that there is something different about their experience with us, not to bring down any other organization, but I just feel like that's really important to us working at the Salvation Army. Another point is you're representing your corps as well as your peers. So just keeping that in mind, that when we're providing customer service, that we, you know, we're representing the corps and our peers. So when a program participant or a client comes through our door, not only are they coming in looking at this as just a service, but we as a unit should be representing those different entities excellently. And our peers as well. If you work in a site where there's multiple caseworkers or multiple case managers, it's really important to know that when you're not there, that is something that is going to be reflected on them. Also, the impact you make is not only for today, but for tomorrow. So just thinking futuristically, when we are able to provide excellent customer service, when people leave our office feeling like they were listened to, feeling like they were made a priority, regardless of what was going on at your office or at your site, that they still felt like they were being heard and acknowledged. The impact that that leaves is like amazing. So we know that like how we're impacted when we walk away from a positive experience. We have to consider that when we are serving our program participants or clients or whomever comes through the building, that is a lasting impression. And many times you don't want people to walk away feeling like the first impression is the last impression. I've been to places myself personally where I had a horrible experience as a customer, and this is kind of unrelated, it's not directly related to social services, but just being at a restaurant, I can recall a situation where I was at a restaurant and the food was pretty good, but the customer service was poor. They didn't really check on us throughout our time at the restaurant. The hostess took almost 5 minutes before they acknowledged us to seat us at a table, maybe longer. And then once we actually were at our table, we just didn't really see that waitress or for quite some time in between different things. We needed our drinks refilled and we couldn't get our cups refilled. And so back to making an impact. Even though the service, even though food was good, because the service was poor, we have not been back to that restaurant. And so just thinking about that in our offices, we want people to feel like they can come back. We want them to have a reason to go back and tell their friends or family, I was able to get this help and they were really kind to me. So that's the point I'm getting at when I say making an impact. And it's also making an impact on the generations to come. So, steps to ensuring your clients have an excellent experience. So one of the steps is focusing on the customer so that the individual is motivated to return. And so I kind of talked about that with making an impact. But really, I know that our offices, like I said again, our offices can get extremely busy. However, we want to make sure that we provide clients, customers with the attention that they need so that they feel excited to come back. And for those of us who are in long-term case management programs, this is extremely important, I feel, because we want them to accomplish their goals. We want them to get on a path of self-sufficiency or whatever it may be. However, if they don't feel like we're focusing on them and their needs, that motivation for them to keep coming back, to return for their appointments that they need to be at, so that they can accomplish what they need to accomplish while in our program, that is lowered significantly. Handle complaints so that customers are satisfied. And I'll get into this in a little bit more detail in the next couple of slides, but just thinking about any complaints that that may come up while we're dealing with someone, just keeping that in mind that no, we won't always be able to give a service to someone. We all recognize that sometimes the answer is just no. but I think it's about how we handle it that really makes the difference. So, you know, if you're impatient or just kind of ignoring the request, not even acknowledging it, even if we can't necessarily provide the exact service that they're looking for, maybe it's even trying to find something else to help them with. So, you know, maybe someone comes in looking for one thing, such as, just for example, maybe a bus card or a gas card. However, they don't meet our guidelines. So what else are we able to help them with? So again, it's how we handle those complaints and so that they're satisfied. So a lot of times you'll see folks who come in, I've seen it go both ways. They're upset, they have an issue, and a lot of times they just want to be listened to. So I think that's a big part of it too, is that sometimes we're so quick to want to move on because we know that their complaint is maybe A, invalid, that's quite possible, or B, just something that, again, we aren't able to provide. But it's how you handle it that really makes a difference. So just really showing them that they're being listened to and being heard. Another point is deliver excellent customer service on the telephone so that customers have a positive perception of your organization. So this one is really important too, I think, because a lot of times it's not necessarily folks who are coming into our office directly, but we're on the phone constantly. So even then it's important to be excellent in what we do. So when someone's calling in, we want to make sure that whatever we say and do will eventually lead them to knowing that the organization that we're representing is a positive organization that is, you know, focused on what their needs are and trying to resolve or assist with it, whatever we can. So we know that a lot of the large part of communication, you know, is through our body language. So if you're on the phone, that's when it's even more important to really try to have excellent customer service, because you can't see that person face to face. They are not able to read your body language. So really you have to be communicating effectively with, you know, calmness and pause. So sometimes I know we'll get on the phone with folks who, you know, don't really give us an opportunity always to speak or to answer their question. They're kind of just, you know, maybe going from question to question or are upset or whatever the case may be. So I think just really keeping that in mind, that even when we're on the phone, that it's still important that we have in mind that we're, you know, that we're giving a positive perception about our organization. I hope everybody's doing okay. I can't hear you, so I hope this is helping. And again, if you have questions about anything I've covered so far, just feel free to type it in the questions box. The next part is cope, just a continuation of that, steps to ensuring the clients have an excellent experience. So another point is cope with the stress, cope with stress so that you maintain a healthy level of work-related stress. So as we know, sometimes stress can definitely be a large factor, and when we're in the work that we're in, it can be quite stressful. So I think just learning to deal with stress in an appropriate and healthy way. So whether that's, you know, if you're feeling stressed or you're feeling overwhelmed.
Come on in. I'm sorry.
Seems we got somebody on the line there.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
That's
All
okay.
right. If you're
Try
not,
by the left.
can you mute your phone, whoever that
Against the
is?
wall on the left side. Might be one in there. Hello?
Can you please mute your phone?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you could hear me.
It's all right. I didn't know we could either. Thanks.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm
They're not.
surprised. I will say nothing, but I'm typing questions.
All right, just mute your phone, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Sorry, Lynette. Carry on.
No, it's no problem. So coping with stress. So that may mean that we're definitely taking the necessary steps to make sure that any stress level that we are experiencing as it relates to work. So that may mean having a conversation with your direct supervisor, just discussing the stress levels you're experiencing, and maybe even talking specifically about a specific situation where you felt like you weren't maybe handling things in the best way, or you felt that things could have been handled differently. You also can, I think it's also good to maybe try to talk with your peers. You know, what are they doing to make sure that they are coping with stress, work-related stress? What is their way to balance that or have a healthy level of work-related stress? So not all stress is necessarily bad. I really try to, I think there's a level, that's why it says healthy level of work-related stress. So any job we have will have some stress. It doesn't matter what we're doing. So whether we're dealing with core soldiers, whether we're dealing with program participants, whether we're dealing with emergency services, even interactions with our peers, coworkers, there's always going to be some level of stress. It's just the nature of, you know, working within an organization, working any job. I just don't think you can eliminate all stress from any job. If you know of a job that you can do that, please send me a note. But in all seriousness, I think, you know, we're not necessarily looking to maybe eliminate all stress, but definitely keeping a healthy level of work-related stress is super important. So like I said, talking to a direct supervisor about stress levels, and of course, I mean, there's always, you know, just really centering ourselves, refocusing, going to God, prayer, reading our Bible, reading and encouraging text or something like that. Even in between your appointments or meetings, I think that's so important. If you can take, you know, 10 or 15 minutes just to recenter yourself, so that you're able to really, you know, take a deep breath, step away from whatever is going on, and really take that time to yourself. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a lot of time. 10 or 15 minutes throughout the day, I think, is something that we all can do. Easier said than done sometimes. I'm guilty of it myself, but definitely important. And then the next is manage the customer's initial contact. So this is just saying, like, you know, when they initially come in, like, we just want to make sure that we are acknowledging them, and that they know that we see them. So however that works at your site, some people have able to have like a waiting area or a lobby where folks can wait to be seen. If you don't have that, you know, just maybe having a number system that's, you know, sometimes that works depending on what you're doing exactly, but just, you know, managing how long a person is waiting to be seen, if they've, you know, been acknowledged when they first came in or not. That's basically what that's getting at. Also address the customer's issues. So again, I'll get into this a little bit more later here in this presentation, but you definitely want to make sure that you're addressing what the specific issue or need is. Close communications with the customer once all issues have been resolved. So just if there's a way to follow up with a particular client, that is something that you definitely want to try to do. I know that time doesn't always permit us to do that. Workload doesn't always permit us to do that. But if there is a way to follow up with someone who's had, so this is specifically related to folks who maybe had an issue. So if someone's leaving, who came to you and there was a specific challenge or issue, you definitely want to follow. If it's not you, maybe it's a peer or coworker or your direct supervisor, someone that can just basically ensure that all is well. So again, it's about making an impact on our program participant and clients, having that positive perception of our organization, representing our cores and representing Christ, just making sure that when someone receives a follow-up, it makes a world of difference to know that someone actually cared enough to see if things got taken care of. Again, I just really like for us to think about that, like when in those experiences ourselves, when we've had a situation and something happened, and we either complained about it or want to talk to someone in charge, and getting a follow-up call or note or email or whatever it is, it really changes things because you feel like, whatever the situation was, I feel like I'm comfortable going back to that place because they followed up with me. They cared enough. They took time out of their day to say, has everything been resolved? Did you get things taken care of? So if it's not you directly who helped resolve the issue or, whoever it is, just making sure that person, if at all possible, I do understand that there are situations that's not really possible. Maybe you don't have their phone number, you don't have any contact, possibly that they just came in and didn't give any information. But if at all possible, we do want to make sure we follow up with folks when there has been some challenges or issues. So, practically speaking, so no matter how busy you are, always take a moment to listen to the client or customer. So this is just something that, again, I know we've kind of talked about it, but when folks are coming into our sites, coming to our core, it should just be our standard practice that no matter what we're doing, even, and sometimes this can mean that we're actually meeting with someone else, even if you already have an appointment, and I know maybe some of you would disagree with this, and I actually would like to get feedback if you do, but in my opinion, no matter how busy we are, just taking a moment just to listen. Well, actually, this would not directly relate if you have someone that you're already working with, and I'll get to that piece. That's my next bullet point, actually. But just taking a moment to listen to the client or customer. So someone walks in, it's just so nice to walk into a place and know that even if people are busy and doing other things, that you at least take a second to acknowledge me and listen to me. Which leads me to my second bullet point is if you are truly busy and unable to talk to a client right away, and that can be in a lot of instances, always make eye contact. Again, most of effective communication comes over half of our communication comes from body language. So the simple fact that you are making eye contact with someone, again, regardless of what is going on at the time, the simple fact that you're saying, I see you, makes such an impact for people. So you're acknowledging their presence, and you can politely ask them to wait. It seems so simple, but at times it's kind of secondary. So this is just one of those things that, like, again, back to, you know, that experience I told you all about when I was at a restaurant. We literally, you know, we had to wait to be seated 5 or 10 minutes before someone even came and spoke with us. It was frustrating because this is what you do. I'm coming to you expecting that you know that I'm coming to you for business or for services. It's no different in our organization. When people come through our door, they're coming because they know that we can do something for them, or assist us getting to other resources. If they can't do it, maybe they know of someone who can. So the simple fact to be, you know, idea of just having that eye contact is so important, because it simply says you matter and you care. And who doesn't want to matter, and who doesn't want to know that someone cares about me? Again, even if you can't help them right away, just acknowledging their presence is just so important. And then again, politely asking them to wait. You know, sometimes and depending on what they're coming in there for, you know, we have folks walk through our offices in our course for all kinds of reasons. You know, and a lot of times we'll find that folks are really have fallen on a hard time, and we don't know where people are coming from when they walk through our door. So at face value, they could be coming from a domestic situation. They could be coming from having lost a close family member or friend. They could be coming into your office because, you know, they're having relationship challenges. They are at risk of losing their homes. They're having significant health issues. So the list goes on and on. I know you all, you know the needs that come into your office, but I'm just saying, just being acknowledged, especially when you're going through a very difficult time, is so important.
Lynnette, we had someone share kind of a pertinent situation that they've experienced recently, that someone came into the office and they didn't have an appointment, so they were unable to meet with them for about 2 hours. But they were able to provide them with his children with a snack and some coloring books and things to help keep them occupied, so that because they did have to wait, they at least had some things to keep them occupied. And that was a good example of what you were referring to.
Excellent. Yes, I like that a lot. I think that's awesome. Yeah, if you definitely, that's a good thought, because when a lot of times we do have folks who come into our offices and they might have kids with them. So it can be a challenge definitely to try to keep children occupied while you're meeting with the guardian. But I think that's a great example of just really thinking practically, and again, just practicing that empathy too. I think that's what it comes down to a lot of times as well. If you were in their shoes, how would you want to be treated? I know for me, I have 2 young kids myself, so whenever I have to go somewhere and I have an appointment and I have them with me, you already feel stressed, because you know that children can be, you know, I mean, they can be loud, they can be cranky, they can be difficult to deal with at times, but so I already feel bad, you know, coming there for an appointment and my kids maybe didn't have a long enough nap, or, you know, or maybe I forgot to throw in a granola bar in my bag and now they're hungry. So I think that was a great example, because a lot of us, you know, it would be nice, you know, if we had access to things that could keep children occupied, or even, if our client, is coming in possibly requesting food services, and maybe, we have a huge several people in front of them, but just kind of, and I think that too is just really being in tune with what's going on with people. So maybe reading their body language, or just kind of paying attention to the state that they are in when they come into our offices is huge. Another point here says, if you are preoccupied or just don't have the time to meet with a particular client, be honest and upfront with them about that. Request that they come at a later time, sorry for the typo, or a different time. If they cannot come back, offer to have them wait, but let them know you cannot promise them a specific time that you will become available, but that you will definitely talk with them when you have the time. So this might not always, when I typed this up, I was kind of thinking of, a situation for me specifically a few years ago when I was actually in an office where it was just me. I was the only case manager in there. So at times, it got busy, and so maybe I was meeting with someone and I just didn't have time to attend to the other person who just came in on a whim. A lot of times in those situations, you'll have appointments, and then of course, as life would have it, people don't always, people can't always just wait for an appointment. So with that being said, if you are preoccupied, the best thing to do is just be totally honest. If you can, just step away for a moment and say, I understand that you're here to see me, but really just be honest with them and say, I don't know when I can literally get back to you, or if you don't mind waiting. I think that's, again, this is just things to just help people be acknowledged and treated well. So people really appreciate that if you can just be honest and upfront, and just say how it is. Don't have them just standing there or waiting there and just kind of wondering if they'll be seen or not. If you cannot see them, you cannot see them. And that's really about managing the time you have. If we could dedicate more hours, we would. I know many of us would, but sometimes that is just not practical. So again, just being honest and forthright about that. If someone does come in and you know that you just cannot meet with them at that particular time, it's best to be honest about that. And sometimes it may mean, if they're willing to wait, then, great. But make sure you definitely see them. If you say, if you wait, I'll see you, definitely make sure that you are monitoring your time so that you will actually make time for them. Don't have someone that comes in your office at 3:30. You're under a deadline already. Maybe you're writing a report or whatever it is. Your office closes at 4 or 4:30 and they come in at 3:30. I mean, just be honest. And do it as, as polite and as you can, but just letting them know, again, that you won't be able to see them, or that they can come at a later time. And I'm sure a lot of us do that, but sometimes, we just forget, or we get so busy, or we just really want to help the next person. It is hard to be like, no, I can't help you right now. So those of you who have a challenge with, well, just one more person or just one more service, sometimes you just have to really take a step back and say, okay, I have my plate full, I literally cannot do this. Okay, never rush a client out of your office. If you are pressed for time, be truthful and let them know, with the intention of picking up wherever you left off. Ooh, this one's harder said than done, I think. But I think it's definitely something we can all practice and try to do better at. But so for the long-winded, program participants, clients, or you know, whoever. It is a skill that I think that is something that, again, you definitely need to practice. But if if you're rushed for time, it kind of does go back to to the top bullet point there that says, like, definitely talk with them, but let them know, with the intention of picking up wherever you left off. So say that person does come in your office at the end of the day, and you know what time your office closes. I think up front you can say, I don't want to seem rude. I don't want to come off the wrong way. However, this is the time constraint I'm under. I think people will appreciate that. Instead of coming in thinking, they have a specific need, it's going to take some time to deal with that, or just saying, again, let's pick up here. Again, I know these are practical, but that's the point. It is practical, but sometimes we don't do it. I hope I'm not going too fast. And again, if folks have questions or specific examples to add to this, again, I'm way open to you sharing your experiences or asking questions. So what about the difficult client? So I think we could actually do a whole presentation about this, but I'll try to give you guys what I have with this. So when dealing with a difficult client, it is important to remain calm and centered. Basic customer service research shows that when you are faced with the challenge of addressing a difficult client, your actions speak louder than your words. So difficult client tips and strategies. So first thing, or one thing you can do, is choose your words carefully. Mirroring your customers' words puts them at ease and assures them that you understand their needs. So, if a person comes in and has a challenge or has an issue, and the other thing I just want to probably put emphasis on is we know that a lot of the people we see in our offices or program participants, I feel like, we have way more positive experiences than we do negative. So I hope this doesn't seem like I'm harping on the negative, but these are just practical tips that I feel like will be helpful. So again, just mirroring their words back to them, that just ensures that you are hearing what they're saying, that you're not blowing over their concerns or their issues or their needs. So repeat back to them what they are saying. That at least acknowledges that I heard you, but is this correct? So you might, if someone says, and we learned this a lot of times for those of you who, have done human services or social workers, we practice this a lot. And so it just basically puts them at ease when you can assure them that you've understand it. You can articulate exactly what it is that they're saying. Also, be very specific. So use measurables. So what does that mean? There are times when when dealing with difficult clients, even ones who have legitimate concerns. So sometimes they mostly, I can't say mostly, sometimes it is about them kind of just getting things off their chest, just to be open, just to be frank. So sometimes they do have legitimate concerns, but a lot of times you will also see that they're really just needing to vent, and unfortunately you're kind of in the zone there where you're probably going to get a lot of that unloading at great length and possibly repeatedly. So when you find a client making broad generalizations, like, nothing's working, or I don't care for this, then your best bet is to, make them be more specific. Ask them for specific examples of what troubles them, and the purpose specifically. So ask them straightforward, point blank. Maybe they're asking for a particular service, but possibly maybe that service is not available, or maybe, unfortunately, with some of us who work with the budget, maybe that that particular service, you're out of funding for the month, or whatever it may be, or you're just not able to access that at the specific time that they need. So maybe you would say, if we have an answer for you by this day, will that work? Specifics are basically your best friend when you're dealing with a difficult client. So they just need something, again, measurable. So giving them a specific time or date that they can meet with you, or that they can come in and get that service, again, really helps. If it's something that's very vague, that's hard. If they're already upset about something and you can't give them a specific answer, or time or date, or to say, I have to check in about this, but come back, tomorrow or in a couple days, and I'll have an answer. So yeah, that does leave it a large responsibility on you to figure it out. You can provide them with an answer, or whatever the case may be, but be specific. That really does help if people feel like they have a specific answer. Another thing is acknowledge. Sometimes you have to acknowledge something but not necessarily agree. So a lot of times, we won't always agree with the situation or the issue that a person is bringing up. However, simply, and I've talked about this already, is just acknowledging. So sometimes agreeing with a client who's displeased, that actually will add fuel to the fire. So if you can acknowledge your position and shift the conversation to the resolution, again, a measurable. You're moving away from the ranting and toward a solution for their complaint. Again, it's basically giving them something measurable. So trying to kind of shift the conversation to something that's going to be more productive. And then recognize a real personality conflict. So if you don't have any other office mates or coworkers, this can be kind of difficult, but it's still doable. So recognizing when that it happens. Sometimes you're just going to run into what I like to say, maybe an oil and water scenario. So we all know what happens when you put oil and water together. It doesn't work. They don't mix. And sometimes that happens. I think it's important for us to really be honest about that. Obviously we want to be able to work with whomever, whenever. However, that is just not always going to be the case. So again, back to that oil and water scenario where you can't find a way to work with a specific client. Your best bet in those situations is to find another member of your staff to assign to that client. If you can, ask the client who they prefer to handle their situation so that they don't feel slighted, but rather realize that you're providing them with exemplary customer service. So just recognizing that within ourselves, and if you have multiple staff, great. If you have just you or another staff, that can, like I said, that can pose a challenge, but maybe again, if it is just you, I would really like to hear from other people what maybe they would do in that situation if there is a personality conflict and there is really no one else that they can work with. But we all have someone to report to, so maybe it's not someone in your office necessarily, but maybe it's your direct supervisor. That can maybe help to facilitate that conversation. But again, it does happen, and I think it's just important to acknowledge that and to make sure that when we're handling that, giving our clients a choice, if possible, to say, I recognize that, our conversation or the work that we're doing together is not really, going, I don't know if you want to say going anywhere, but for a lack of better words, not moving forward, and would you like to or prefer to work with someone else? And so this is just a quote that I found, and I just thought it was really, really kind of poignant. So it says, life is full of imperfect things and imperfect people. I'm not the best at hardly anything, and I forget birthdays and anniversaries just like every other human. What I've learned over the years is that learning to accept each other's faults and choosing to celebrate each other's differences is one of the most important keys for creating a healthy, growing, and lasting relationship. Life is too short to wake up with regrets. Love the people who treat you right and have compassion for the ones who don't. I just think at the end of the day, whether whether we're dealing with a client who we can help and who is kind of reciprocating that positivity towards us is great. However, if we do have someone that, it's more difficult, it's really important for us to have that compassion piece. And I think a lot of times for customer service, sometimes that's really what it comes down to. Aside from all the practical tools or tips that we want to use, do we have compassion? If you've lost your compassion, this might be a good time to do some introspective reflection and just say, how can I be more compassionate to the folks that we serve, the program participants, the people coming into our cores and to our office. And we're not 100% perfect. We're not always going to be perfect. Well, no one's perfect, but you know what I mean. We're just not going to always have the best of days, and we do have to keep that in mind. But just really trying to keep at the center that compassion piece. So, I think it's getting close to time for us to wrap up. Again, if anybody has questions, Rachel, I don't know if anybody typed in any questions or.
Yep, we have a few. First, and there was a couple questions about dealing with difficult populations, which I think we kind of addressed. That's why I held off on those.
Okay.
But something that was pointed out was, sometimes those with disabilities or language difficulties, that's a whole different kind of ball game. And
Definitely.
I'm not sure we ever have answers for that, but just something to consider as people are thinking about this information, kind of being cognizant of some of those cultural concerns. Oh, go ahead. And then I have another question if you're ready for it.
Yep.
Okay. This one says, we find it difficult because we have one staff member at a time tending to a scheduled client who's being responsible for answering the phone and the door, so they can't pay as much attention to someone who's on the phone or someone who's coming in as a walk-in. Any suggestions of how to help that situation when you're kind of like that one-man show?
Yep. And so for that, like I said, I did spend a couple years in a single-person office, and it is really hard because you are basically either your frontline worker, you're answering phones, and it is challenging. I think that's why it's important to try to come up with a plan. Like when you are meeting like with your direct supervisor, just you all discussing different strategies and ways that you can do that. For me, at one point, you know, I did have to have specific appointment times. And like I said, I know that that isn't always stuck to, because people are just walking in and they don't realize they need an appointment or whatever that may be. But again, it comes back to that, just try to be open and honest with whoever comes into your office, and just say, like, explaining, you know, what you're kind of doing. So like if you have a deadline to meet and someone walks in, and you know, just being honest and say, you know, I'm sorry, are you able to come back at this time? And I know that it's really hard, especially with folks who may be coming into our office. They don't, you know, they need an answer now. They need a service now. They might not have transportation. So that's really hard. But sometimes we just, you know, we can't do it all. And maybe even trying to come up with a way that if there's other people in the building, even if they're not a part of your team, maybe trying to work with them to kind of field some of that too, just not necessarily providing services, but maybe, you know, if they see somebody waiting, they can, you know, offer them a brochure or something, or, you know, if you're away and can't come, you know, can't come to the door or whatever it is, you know, just having brochures maybe somewhere nearby that says, okay, this is what we do, these are our hours, this is when we can help you, or take a card, we'll call you right away as soon as we can. So those are a couple things that you can try.
Yeah, I just would add also it's a good place to use volunteers to kind of maybe do some like welcoming. So it's a very skilled volunteer. They can kind of just welcome and say, hey, they'll be there in a minute, you know. So it's a good place to use volunteers too. Another question, piggybacking on volunteers, which is how I got that answer, was how can we better teach volunteers customer services? What are some avenues we can do that?
Yeah. Oh man, this is a good one. Because I've worked with volunteers too. And because it is a it is a volunteer position, so we have to love on our volunteers, and you know, it's not, we have to, I feel like volunteers are very delicate, because we really need them. They're not staff, so there's not that piece of, you know, you need to do this and we're putting an action plan in place for you to get this right. So that can be challenging, but I think offering support, so if you have an opportunity to do some one-on-one with volunteers, or if you see that there is a pattern, so you see that maybe, I've had that in my experience when I oversaw a food shelf. One of our volunteers, they had kind of a hearing impairment, so they talked really loud sometimes, and sometimes the loudness came across as angry. And you know, so just sitting down and like talking with that person to say, like, I understand that, you know, you might have a difficult time hearing. Is there any way that we can be more helpful? Is there a different job that we can maybe help you with? Because this person was doing phones, and that was quite difficult because they couldn't hear the people on the other line, and so they'd raise their voice and keep raising their voice, and it just came across kind of harsh. And so just maybe reassigning them to a different task, or again, just pulling them aside when you have a minute. Maybe try to do some one-on-one training or guidance in that area. Again, just being really, trying to be honest, gentle, but you know, honest about, you know, what maybe the challenge is, and just really letting them know that you know, you appreciate them, but maybe trying to see if there's a better fit for them as far as like what they're currently doing for their volunteering services.
All right, we have one more question really quick before we wrap up. And I'm not sure we really have an answer because it's probably based on location, but I didn't want to ignore their question. They were asking about when setting scheduling system for the office, what would be a recommended block of time per client? probably
Oh,
based on the services that you're providing, unfortunately.
right. Yeah, and it can vary. So, and especially if you have to do any data entry, I think a ideal time is anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. Sometimes, but if you're doing long-term case management, you might need more time than that. So if you're just doing kind of basic needs services, um, make sure you have time to do a brief check-in and see where folks are at, assess the need. So if someone comes into your office and they say someone comes for food shelf, but you recognize that they have other challenges and they're needing other services. I think one you can do is definitely acknowledge that, but if you are pressed for time, set up a separate appointment. Again, I know that sometimes transportation can be an issue and that can be a challenge, but if at all possible, if you see that there is a need that can't be met in that 15 to 30-minute block, just really be honest and say, I really would like to follow up with you about this particular situation. Can we set aside another time that we can meet? And then you can decide, do I need another 30 minutes or do I need an hour or an hour and a half to meet with this person?
All right. I think that is all of the questions. Some of them came in duplicate, so we kind of summed some of them up.
Okay.
But thank you, everyone, for your participation today. We will get all the recording information and the handouts and all that to you probably Monday, maybe Friday if I'm on top of things. But we'll have that all sent out to you and the information from Lynnette. Don't forget to please respond to the survey. It's really short at the end so we can get that feedback from you and continue providing this as a hopefully helpful service to all of you. So thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good afternoon.